All right, guys, it's going to be fun. Our guest this week is Cort Davies. In 2017, Cort was diagnosed with one of the rarest forms of cancer, and he was given just 3 years to live. And as you can imagine, that was a scary diagnosis. But instead of shutting down and just accepting it, Cort set out on a mission to defy it. Since then, he's undergone 7 surgeries. He's had half of his bladder removed. He's almost been paralyzed by some of the treatments. Incredible, right? But despite all of this, Cort has realized he now considers cancer and this resulting journey a gift. It's something that's taught him about life, about healing, about being intentional, about his mindset, and making every day count. So Cort has decided to translate this gift into a docu-series, a brand new book, and a virtual summit, amid many other things. And he really wants to help people to develop a healing mindset, to be intentional with their daily living, and to change what he calls the destructive habits that could hinder their ability to heal, right? So his goal is to help initiate healing for thousands of cancer patients worldwide, but also help all of us to live healthier, less stressful lives. He's doing amazing things. So I wanted to bring him on to Dream, Think, Do so we could hear more of his story and learn from his journey. So let's get to this. Cort, welcome to Dream, Think, Do, buddy.
Mitch, thanks for having me, man. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So my man, 2017, you get this diagnosis. I can only imagine how crushing that must have been, but how did you take it? But more so, how did you realize you weren't just going to accept it?
Well, that's a great question. And every time that intro is read to me, it blows my mind that I'm here right now. Like
Right.
it blows my
It's
mind
amazing.
that you read that, and it blows my mind that I'm here because I've been going through it for about 2.5 years. But what you don't see in that intro is I was misdiagnosed for 3 years before that.
Wow.
So I have been going through it for about 5.5 years, and it took about 20 to 25 doctors to actually figure out what was wrong with me.
Incredible. I know this cancer that you've had is very rare. So rare, I can't pronounce it. So go ahead and pronounce it for everybody.
Malignant paraganglioma.
Good night. Okay, and it's wildly rare. So what are the
Yes.
numbers on it, just to kind of give people
1
an
in 2
idea?
million. It's a 1 in 2 million cancer. So,
Okay.
so if you know, to give you an example, I think breast cancer is maybe 1 in 50,000 or 1 in 100,000. This is a 1 in 2 million. So
wow. So making it rare, which also probably means making people with experience, or physicians, medical staff that have experience with it, also very rare.
very, very, very few.
Yeah. So, what has that been like? Because I would imagine, it's one thing to go through these kinds of experiences and have a lot of people be able to, understand, be kind of in it with you through experience, those kinds of things. When you're a 1 in 2 million, that makes that kind of tough. What's that been like for you?
Well, I guess I have the unicorn of cancers, if you will.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them for sure. I mean, if you go to like a cancer info site, like the cancer is not ever listed.
Yeah.
And so I think your question is awesome because it's really how I've shaped and driven my life. Because for most cancers, and again, I don't want to make it sound like cancer is easy in any way, but for most cancers, for a typical cancer like lung or kidney or bladder or testicular or prostate or breast, there's what's called a protocol, right?
Right.
You literally come in and they go, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you 15 rounds of this. We're going to do 10 rounds of radiation over 5 weeks, and we're going to remove this tumor, right? Or we're going to remove that tumor. And so for me, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so I've had 8 surgeries in 2 years.
Wow.
I've had probably a half a dozen clinical trial drugs that unfortunately haven't worked yet. And then I have now I'm on chemotherapy, and it's been a long time. We've been really avoiding chemotherapy for a long time because, again, there's not much data. And Mitch, data is everything in this game, right? It's like data is everything in business.
Right.
Does it work or does it not work? And so we don't know much about what chemotherapy or any of the other drugs have the effects on this cancer. And so that makes my journey really difficult and fearful at times.
Right. I would imagine so. And that's, it's interesting that, we've talked, you truly do see this not as easy, but
No,
as a blessing. I mean,
I
you've
do.
learned so much. You're also now helping so many others through your book, through the summit you're doing, those kinds of things. I know that you kind of feel like that's a part of your mission.
It is.
Um, but I think you bring up a really good point that is important for anybody navigating cancer, no matter what form it is, because it's never easy. It's always a very scary word to hear associated with your name. There's no doubt. But even for those who've never had that in their lives, I know my wife, my wife was diagnosed with
Mhm.
cancer. So those diagnoses are just scary. Those meetings are, you don't wish them on anybody, but I know my wife kind of puts herself in that same category. She wouldn't wish it on anybody, but she also wouldn't give it back for anything.
Yep.
It really was
Yep.
a life-changing experience for her. But I think you just brought up a point that I think is very appropriate and important to talk about if somebody's navigating cancer. But I think it's also, and I think in some ways, one of the other reasons why I want to have you on right now, because for the last few years, you've been navigating a world of 1,000 different inputs and not being sure which data to trust,
Yes.
and kind of still having to find peace in that, and lowering your stress levels. And we're all, as we record this, we're in the throes of COVID-19 pandemic stuff. We've got data points here. We got data points there. This is what safety represents. No, that's wrong. This is totally different. All those kinds of things. So all these different inputs, we're trying to navigate it, move forward, and have some semblance of peace, some semblance of focus. So I got to admit, I'm having you on for a couple of different reasons, because I want to hear about
Perfect.
your journey, but I also want to hear your perspective on that, because I think a lot of people are trying to navigate, what do we do when we're not quite sure what truth is right now? So
Exactly.
what would you say is some things that you've learned in regards to coping, in regards to moving forward, in regards to finding peace amid not being sure and 1,000 different data points?
Man, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, right.
I think the first thing is, uh, long story short, we we thrive in life when we have a good mission and purpose to put
Yeah.
behind us. There's a
Yeah.
doctor by the name of Stephen Cole, and he's a medical professor at UCLA. And I interviewed him for my TED talk that I did back in October, which was the correlation between stress and cancer.
Yep.
And again, it's not it's it there's a core so cancer is just one of the things. It's the stress between it's a correlation between stress and disease when your
Yep.
body's in disease. So it could be cancer, it could be arthritis, it could be anything, right? That's when we have heartburn, that's that could be a part of a stressful process, right?
Right.
So what the doctor said to me, which was really interesting, and I interviewed him for my summit, and he said, of all the research I do in the correlation between disease and the human genome, disease and stress biology, is that people that have missions and purposes that are bigger than them typically are the ones that get through it, and
Hmm.
typically are the ones that survive and thrive.
Yep.
And so I had that going for me right away, because I feel like, I was in, like I was telling you before, I was in the entrepreneurial world. I was, a startup founder and a startup entrepreneur and a consultant. And honestly, I was living someone else's life.
Hmm.
And I don't, I'm not telling people this to say, don't do that world. It just wasn't the world for me.
Yeah.
And the world for me was helping people. It was more heart centered. It was more, I was building apps, and I was like, this isn't really helping people from my perspective.
Hmm.
The cancer thing came along, smacked me on the head, and I said, wow, I'm really good at learning. I'm really good at taking a lot of information and boiling it down into something simple. And I've always wanted to write a book, and I've always wanted to speak, and I've always wanted to kind of be that personality. This is my mission and purpose was like created for me there. Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that makes things a lot different.
Yeah.
So if you can get into, and again, I mean, it's cancer or anything else. I call it, peaks and valleys, right? If you're in a valley, or if you're at what you call the bottom, the only way to go from there is to go up. Right. And
Right.
so, how can you turn that into a mission and purpose? And so that mission and purpose led me to doing research, led me to learning, led me to get really interested in the whole process of cancer, and not just the medical side of it, but the mindset side of it.
Yeah.
That's really where I feel like I survive and thrive. And so that's where meditation comes in, and that's where healthy eating comes in, and that's where lifestyle comes in. That's where what you said something that was really, really incredible just now, and that's inputs.
Mm-hmm.
We live in an input heavy world, and that input heavy world creates so much stress.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to look at our sphere of ourselves and the inputs coming in. And we need to be aware of the ones we don't want to get past our brainstem. We don't want the ones that get past our brainstem to go into our body. And so
right.
I've really gotten good at learning which inputs to let through and which inputs to not let through.
Okay, that's gold. We're going after that. We just hit on a vein of gold. We're going deeper, Cort. So, okay, let's keep mining that, because I know that really, I mean, you do have a TED Talk. You talk about the connections between stress and cancer, all of that. So I know that you have really been digging into how do you control more of those inputs? How are you going? Because when you're navigating cancer, you got, oh my gosh, 1,000 different websites. You have different physicians and specialists. Everybody's got an opinion, all of those things. You also have, I'm sure, relatives, friends, everybody, wants to share ideas and solutions, right?
Peanut gallery, I call them.
Exactly right. So that's cancer, but also life right now. You're right. I mean, it's normal to have a lot of inputs now during this season for all of us. It's a billion different inputs. So what are some specific strategies you found to really help you? Because, I mean, we do need to take input. We do need to say, all right, what are possible solutions? But for those ones, like you said, that go past the brainstem and actually make it in, what's your filtering process, or how have you found to effectively navigate that?
I believe everything's serendipitous. I really do. And I believe everything's connected. So I had this interview with a fellow, the partner on my summit the other day. And we talked about the inputs and outputs. And I'm just going to show this to you. I'll put it on the screen. I don't know if people will be able to see it, and I'll explain it. Right.
Yeah.
So essentially what I just showed you is we tend to live according to our values. There's typically 5 or 6 of our highest values. So Mitch, think about the things you would always get out of bed to do that you never have to get told to get up to do.
Yep.
For me, it's health and wellness, my career and mission, learning, creating abundance in my life, and relationships. Right. So everyone's values are different.
Right.
And so what I thought to myself is, there's this great exercise that Joe Dispenza does, where he says, put your name in the center, create a circle around it, and then connect all the inputs that are coming into your life. And let me name some inputs.
Yep.
Past failures, stress, anxiety, trauma, depression, new technology, medical bills, arguments, old bosses, grudges, crappy TV shows, shopping, clothing, the news, past relationships, social media, mail, entertainment, text messages. So a lot of these are just junk, right? And they're just coming into you. And so again, even getting off the topic of cancer, I literally drew this and I said, this is my next book. And my book is going to be stress-based. It's going to be helping people from a stress perspective and how to detach from those inputs.
Yep.
And so you have what's called your inner circle, and your inner circle is anything associated with your highest values. So Mitch, if you were to look at yourself, again, anyone listening, draw your name in the middle of a piece of white paper, draw your name, and underneath it, draw the 4 or 5 things that you value the most. By the way, Dr. John DeMartini has it for free on his website. He does a values assessment. Awesome. And you could just look up Dr. John DeMartini. I interviewed him for my cancer summit. He's a really incredible human being. And what you start to realize is when you list the amount of things that are creating sensory, that are trying to get in, list the ones that are actually aligned with your values. So for me, friends, family, meditation, exercises, my new book, my summit, research, trips and travel, living, transportation, marketing, my basic needs, my insurance, eating healthy. And all of a sudden you look and you go, okay, how do I stop these inputs from getting past the inner circle? And that's really where awareness comes in.
Yeah.
And so for anyone out there that's going through a stressful situation, this could be by the way, I feel like I could teach entrepreneurs this like nothing, because entrepreneurs are chronically stressed.
Right.
They're chronically not getting sleep.
Always something to be doing, right? Always something. Yeah, absolutely.
And always something to be doing what you just said. It doesn't leave space for genius. It doesn't leave space for creativity. It doesn't leave space for doing the things you actually really need to do.
Yep.
So I would say, if I were to break this down, I would say find the things that you value the most in your life, the 1 to 4 things. Find the inputs that you accept to get past your brain stem, friends, family, meditation, exercise. Those are mine, by the way. You come up with your own.
Yep.
And stop the ones that are getting to your brain stem that you don't want to get through. The past failures, the old bosses, the bad relationships, the news, because those are the ones that are going to drive you crazy. And this, by the way, that is cancer. That's my cancer journey. I am constantly fighting on, Mitch, even watching the news, even just getting on CNN for a second just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Or Fox News or anything, right? Because all of a sudden these inputs are coming in, and just like you said, then everyone's telling you different things. I'm safe. I'm not safe. Wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. Wear gloves. Don't wear gloves. It could drive you mad.
Right.
We don't need
Absolutely.
that. We don't need that in our life.
Yep. And it's one of those that I think, it's amazing. So much of this comes to being intentional, right? And intentionality starts with, what's your foundation? What are you going to build from, right? You can't be intentional without having some of those foundational pieces in place. And I love that exercise, and I love the map. Maybe we can get a photo of it.
I can get a photo and send it to you.
We'll put that because I know everybody that's listening to this is like, show us the map, show us the map. So we'll include the image of that. But it really does start from that place of clarity. And I know you're also, as a person that obviously you have to be very careful, very intentional right now, right? So you're not burying your head in the sand, but it's also, there's a difference between being aware and spending a lot of time on CNN or any of the news outlets or whatever, or just even ruminating on that. I had Bob Berg on recently, and we talked about what is truth. And he said, there's truth from that bigger perspective, but he said, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, we have to operate in our current truths. And he's like, not from an esoteric standpoint, but if basically if your state is saying these are the restrictions, those are our current truth. Would we like to change some of them? Maybe. Do we have different opinions? Maybe. But he's like, those are the truths we have to work from. So it's that whole thing of, like, from your standpoint, I love that. Like, let's start with intentionality to say what's getting in. Because, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, I think it's always the case, but now probably even more so. The temptation to look more, the temptation to watch, you can even justify, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to watch my Twitter feed because it's good for my safety. And it's like, nope, couldn't be further from the truth, right? So I think that's huge. And I know that in some ways it's something we all know, but it's something that's wildly important right now. And I appreciate your willingness to share your story, because I think it helps to bring it back to the forefront and to simplify it. Now, I would imagine that as you've been on this journey, I know putting the book together, putting the summit together, you've not been lacking things to do. So I would imagine having that awareness has been important for you, but I'm also guessing there's things that tear at it all the time. So what would you say, having that awareness, being intentional about knowing your values, limiting those inputs, where would you say is a weakness for you, and how have you learned to overcome that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So meditation has been my, if I were to pile up everything on my journey, the thing that's the strongest thing in my life is meditation by far. And it's because I spend 2 to 3 hours a day doing it.
Wow.
And so what meditation does is it's taken that map, like I showed you.
Yep.
And it's allowed me to be more present and stop letting those inputs come in.
Yeah.
Because the inputs, going through cancer, listen, the inputs going, again, just to even relate, the inputs going through cancer and just going through life in general right now could be very similar, like bills. Like those are things that, like, when I get a bill in the mail, like I get anxious, and I realize that I'm giving my power over to this piece of paper. Right. And I go, and I could look at that bill sometimes and I can go, I might not even be alive to pay this. And so what's more important, this bill or me being alive to freaking pay it in the first place?
Right.
And so all of a sudden I've said, I don't really, medical bills are of no interest to me anymore. And I'm going to tell you what happened. Once I stopped giving, once I started kind of focusing my energy on medical bills and started focusing on healing, I am not even kidding you. My hospital called me 2 weeks ago, and they gave me $14,000 off my medical bill. They literally cut almost 95% of my medical debt away. They gave it. They forgave it.
Wow.
And I don't know what you guys believe in manifestation, but I do believe that I manifest things, and I believe that I have the ability to manifest. Yeah. And when I took the focus off of the things that were causing me pain in life, it came around full circle, and I literally, I almost have no medical debt all of a sudden after, as a result of not worrying about medical bills.
Yeah, and putting your focus on those things that are most important.
Exactly.
I love that. All right, so we could talk about manifesting a whole lot, but I want to go first though to the meditation, because
sure.
I am exploring that. I believe in prayer, so I find there's a lot of similarities in schools of thought. Obviously, some big differences, but also a lot of similarities. So I love exploring. You just said you spend a couple hours in meditation each day. Yep. So would you be okay with talking about some of the specifics of that? Like, what does that look like for you? Is that first thing in the morning? Is that all 2 hours together? Is that throughout the day? What's that look like for you?
So first, I believe prayer is meditation. Prayer, anything that's going to make you present is meditation.
Yep.
And there's four types of meditation. There's standing, there's sitting, there's laying down, and there's walking. So people don't realize there's so many ways to meditate. And so a lot of people who try to get into meditation go, oh, I can't sit still and close my eyes, right? Well, there's other ways to meditate. Okay. Right. So I think the first, it's interesting we're talking about this because I just did an interview about this with my business partner on the summit, and it was kind of like an intro to meditation. And so for even people that don't have cancer want to watch this video. It's awesome. Yeah. I can actually give it to you and put it in the show notes if you want.
Okay. Awesome.
And so the real purpose of meditation is to get present. Just like we were talking about. We want to stop the inputs from coming into our mind. And so again, this goes back to stress biology, Mitch.
Yep.
The more inputs that we have, the more things that we have that are kind of poking at our mind and our brainstem, the more in fight or flight we're in. So our autonomic nervous system is out of balance.
Yep.
And so the autonomic nervous system has the fight or flight, sympathetic, and then the parasympathetic.
Yep.
And so the more we are thinking about either the past and the future, the more our body is out of whack. And that's scientific.
Yeah, okay? That's good. Yep, absolutely.
The Benson Henry Institute in Massachusetts, it's affiliated with Harvard and the Mass General Hospital. They did an incredible study. They took 30 meditators that were novices, and they measured their gene expression. And what gene expression is what are your genes are on and off. And let's just to simply say that is, we have 20-something thousand genes in our body that create over 100,000 proteins. And for 20,000 genes to create 100,000 proteins, genes have to turn on and off to actually create, kind of connections to create these proteins. And so what I mean by that is, for instance, my body is a little out of whack right now, which means that there's some genes that are turned off for tumor suppression.
Sure.
Okay, so the tumors aren't being suppressed in my body, and I want to turn those back on. A healthy biome would be a healthy, a genome would be working where those would be working properly. And so they did this study, really amazing, over 8 weeks. And what they found was that just 8 weeks of meditation, 15 minutes a day, changed 1,600 gene expressions in the body. 1,600. Wow. 800 were turned on, meaning were turned on for health, and 600 were turned off for disease. Meaning these people, after 8 weeks of just meditating for 15 minutes, literally exploded their health. And there's a thing called a telomere. A telomere is the little shoestring on the end of a DNA. And they actually can tell how much life you have in you based on that shoestring. And so what they also found is that the telomeres grew. So people extended their life by meditating 15 minutes a day for eight weeks.
And these are novices. These aren't people that have climbed to a summit in Nepal.
Nope. They're not the yogis. They're novices.
I love it. Well, let's talk about the mechanics of that. That's fascinating. It's incredible.
And so again, I know we want to be quick about meditation because everyone has a lot of questions about it. But simply put is this: you wanna block your ears and you wanna block your eyes, because
Yeah.
most people are auditory and visual, right? And so if you have auditory, music or sounds or visuality coming to you, those are inputs, right? You want to
Yeah.
block those inputs to become more present. A lot of people can go outside and meditate outside and hear nature. I can do that now. It just takes, a while to get back into. But if you go to YouTube simply, or Spotify, and just type in meditation music, it's just ambient music,
Yeah.
no voice,
Yep.
and just put it on your ears. And I get a little eye patch. I don't have it with me, but I have a little eye patch put over my eyes, and I just sit down. And if you're going to try meditating, try it for 5 minutes. And
Yeah.
then what John Asseroff says, I was just talking to him about incorporating new habits
Yeah.
with people, and he's an expert of that. He's a behavioral expert, and he goes, if you're going to incorporate a new habit, do it at such mini steps that it's just almost ridiculous. Meaning,
Yep.
meditate 5 minutes one day, meditate 6 minutes the next day, 7 minutes the next day, 8 minutes the next day, and just work up to that, right? And
Yep.
so here's the greatest advice for meditation that I can give. Your body, Mitch, just like we said, your body wants to move. In our society, we have been built to move and do things.
Yep.
So you need to treat your body like it's a dog. You literally need to close your eyes and you need to say, stay,
Yeah.
sit, stay. And when you get that, when something comes in your mind and says, oh, I have to check emails, I have to check Twitter, I have to look at the news, just say, stay,
Yeah.
sit, stay. And you're going to keep on bringing yourself back to presence. And by the way,
Interesting.
this process could take years to really get amazing at. But as Joe Dispenza says, there's no such thing as a bad meditation. If you're cutting stimulants out of your life, you are becoming more present, and your body is able to get into homeostasis more.
Wow.
And so, man, there's really no reason not to try meditation. To me, it's I mean, listen, Mitch, they do studies that if they do global meditations, there was just one a couple of weeks ago where 1 million people got together. And so they do studies where if over a certain amount of people meditate around the globe, crime goes down, murder goes down, treaties get signed, wars stop. Like, meditation is that powerful.
I love it. See, this is the thing, man. I told you I had show notes. I knew where we'd start. I had a sense of where we'd stop, but where we go in between, I don't know. And this is the beauty of it, man. I appreciate you being so generous with your content. This is amazing. Let's shift a little bit, because I want to talk about the book and I want to talk about the summit real quick.
Sure.
You've got a brand new book, like literally hot off the press.
Brand new book.
I love it. One Habit. Let's talk about that. One Habit Beats Cancer. Secrets of the happiest cancer thrivers on the planet. Just give us a quick synopsis, because I know you wrote it with a number of other amazing folks.
I did
as well.
So Dr. Bernie Siegel told me once, he's an incredible cancer author and oncologist. He told me that the word patient in its normal language, which I believe is Latin or Greek, means submissively suffering or quietly suffering. So when you hear the word cancer patient, you think of someone that's suffering. And that's why I came up with cancer thriver. When you close your eyes, what does a cancer thriver looks like? Well, it looks like, again, someone like me, someone who still has their hair, someone who's, writing a book and doing a summit. And so I got 50 of those people together, and they just have some amazing stories. I mean, some people were given weeks to live and are still here 30, 40 years later.
Wow.
And I got to say, the more I talk about this with you, Mitch, the more I realize that, the Cancer Summit is the first step, but it's the inspiration and the hope from these stories that can inspire anyone going through any adversity and trauma, anything.
There's no doubt, because it's so true. And it's one of those things, the things you've learned are obviously applicable in your own life to make you a thriver.
Of course.
Right. But they are also so wildly important for all of us to be learning from.
And so the way that the book works is each thriver gives a habit that helped them. And what's called an unhabit is a habit that they got rid of. And anyone could do this. I mean, I think about the habits that came up, walking in nature, laughing with their children, meditation, changing their lifestyle, exercising more. Like, all these things are good for all of us, and all of us need new habits and getting rid of old habits. there was
love
a
it.
lot of, there's a lot of connecting with faith and God. And personally, on my journey, I believe that faith and spirituality has played one of the biggest parts in my life. To believe there's something bigger than us,
Yeah.
to believe that there's a creator, to believe that, everything in this universe is divinely connected.
Yep. Dude, I'm so glad we had another 4 hours.
I
Well,
can
we've
tell
actually,
you and I could talk forever.
we could. I'm looking forward to having you back, and we're just going to get those dates in order so that we can have you back for the next 30 years. How's that sound?
Awesome.
I love it. So the summit is the One Habit Summit.
One Habit
Give
to
us,
Beat Cancer Summit. Yep.
right. So, but that people go to onehabitsummit.com. I want to get people there.
OneHabitSummit.com. Yep.
Yep. And give us the 30-second summit. Talk about the summit explanation. Talk about the
Absolutely.
ultimate pivot, all those things.
So we got half cancer thrivers and half really incredible content providers. A lot of people that you would have interviewed, Mitch, like people like yourself. Brian Tracy and John DeMartini and John Asseroff and Temple Hayes and Janine Shepherd and
Hal
Bernie
Elrod.
Siegel and like Hal Elrod, and
Yep.
Hal's become a really good friend of mine. Hal
That's
just
amazing.
had cancer, so
yeah, right, amazing.
And so it's 30 to 60-minute interviews, and there's 40 of them. It's 50 hours of content. It's incredible, and it's literally hope and inspiration and incredible healing, health and wellness modalities for this time in our life. And by the way, like I said, anyone could get something out of this, but it's really, I think it's really tailor-made for a caregiver or someone that's going through cancer. And by the way, the caregivers are the ones out there doing the research. They're the ones out there trying to find this content. My goal is just simply this. I have stage 4 cancer right now. I feel like I'm doing well. I feel like I'm going to beat this. My goal is this. I just want to bring hope. I just want to show people that what you have is not as bad as what you think. And you have every ability to get through this. And it's all about the perception in your mind. How are you going to perceive cancer in your life? Is it going to be something that disempowers you, or is it going to be something that takes you to the next level?
Dude, you're incredible, man. I so appreciate you. And I couldn't agree more, but I'm so grateful for you. So thanks for being generous. Thanks for sharing what you're doing. And it's obvious you have really, we talked about the importance of mission and purpose, and you are living it, man. And I love it. And thanks for doing the good that you're doing.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it, Mitch.